Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show all the way down in Florida. How are you doing today, Kristi?
I am well, Steve. How are you? Long time no chat.
A long time no chat. I know I missed the last one because, well, our flight didn't quite go the way we wanted it to go. So I missed out on the Patreon show. But
I feel like that's just summer travel lined up for you, like in a summary for all listeners now.
I mean, I know that everybody, and I'm not sure Kristi and Derry will get to your experiences, but I mean, travel has just been crazy this summer, and it's not going to back off because just so many people are out there traveling. So there's just not a lot of room for slop as far as if something goes sideways a little bit, unfortunately. But we are going to turn to my favorite place to cruise, which is the Mediterranean. And to do that today, I'd like to welcome to the show back for the second time, Derry, all the way out in Virginia. How you doing today, Derry?
Doing great. Thank you.
I am excited to hear about your cruise. Hopefully we didn't leave the dream in too much of a mess since you cruised right after us.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
And I'd like to welcome for the first time to our show, but she's not a stranger to our community whatsoever, all the way down to California. How are you doing today, Kristi?
Good. Happy to be here.
Excited to talk to you about your guys' experience in Europe too, doing the classic 7-night Mediterranean cruise. But before we jump into that, Kristi wanted to touch on how you guys got there. Most people take airplanes to get over to Europe, so I'm assuming that that's what you did, although my college did have a rowing team that rowed there one time. So that's an opportunity. Kristi's shaking her head because she's just tired of me and my goofy little jokes. But why don't we start with you, Derry? How did you guys plan getting over to Europe this year?
So we had been watching, once we booked the cruise and realized, it's going to start and end in different places, started in Rome and ended in Barcelona. We did look at opportunities to maybe save by taking a flight from one of our home airports in the DC area through, London or something, and then changing there and going to Rome. But we were just really nervous about, we also traveled to Europe last year and did the 11-night Northern Europe and experienced, how that can be challenging if you change planes. So we decided just to go ahead and spend the big bucks and go direct. So we just went directly to Rome from DC and then directly back from Barcelona to DC. And actually, we had very smooth experiences, but the day before we came home was a disaster, as I understand it. A lot of East Coast weather challenges causing a lot of delays. People that were flying from Barcelona back to Newark had a ton of delays on our day because their plane originated in Newark. And so it was super delayed getting back to Barcelona. So anyway, we really lucked out though. We had really smooth travels. So I guess it was worth it. I don't know.
No, that's definitely a challenge because London at one point was they were threatening strikes in their international terminal. And so, you going directly to Rome definitely probably saved you some anxiety. And with our cruise as well, we definitely saw some people with troubles on the East Coast with weather, which can always happen. And I guess the thing that we'd always advise, and I think everybody knows this, is try to get there a couple of days ahead of time. And I saw your picture of Civitavecchia. You flew right over the top of the port as you flew into Rome.
We did. I was excited. I had to look up later to see, is this actually, this probably is it. I didn't know, but it was. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
And Kristi, you are a miles planner, kind of like us. How did you guys get to Europe for yours? You were you were into Barcelona and then out of London.
Yes. So we flew out of LAX and back into LAX. Everything was smooth. We had on the way there, we had a layover in Paris and then flew into Barcelona. The only delay we had a cancellation flying from Paris to London and then a delay because of weather flying out of London. So, we got really, really lucky. And then I just paid almost everything with points that, I had to throw in some cash too. But that's kind of like my little side hop. I would recommend your sign-up bonuses are your biggest bang for your buck. But then there's a lot of rules, especially with Chase and stuff like that. So give it a Google. But everything goes on the credit card. That's how I get all my points. And then you always have to pay it off in full every month. Like, don't ever carry a balance. You can get really deep in the weeds getting into that topic.
Where did you sort of get your miles and points knowledge, or where did you get your start? Where would you recommend somebody get a start if they wanted to do that? Because you flew like lie flat seats to Europe.
No, we didn't do lie flat. No.
I thought
we did the premium economy. We did the premium economy, which was the first time I've ever flown in anything other than regular economy. So my kids were like, "Oh, can we do this every time?" I was like, "Dude, I'm 44, and this is the first time I've ever done this." There's a website called 10x Travel. they have like a little guide you can download, print it, read it twice, highlight it. That's where I would say get your start. And then there's a ton of Facebook groups. And at first, when you start, you're going to be like, what are they talking about? Just keep reading and you'll just start picking it up.
And I know friend of the show, Joe, that does Disney Deciphered, he also has a Miles and Points podcast, Miles to Memories, which is a really enjoyable listen. I am a very bad Miles and Points person, but I still love to listen to that podcast every week. And, we'll just do my little Venture X, get a free hotel room here and there.
His podcast is one of the ones that I started listening to, like when I started getting into this and like, what are they talking about? And then you just slowly start to pick it up,
It definitely helps when you defer the costs a little bit with getting over to Europe or just going to Florida. I know that a lot of people the Southwest card is pretty popular with people that getting down to Florida. So Kristi, any thoughts about flying to Europe?
With Disney cruises, a lot of times, and even some other cruise lines starting and stopping in different locations, it is usually cost prohibitive to do a one-way flight to Europe. You need to do round trip, but you're in two different locations. So how do you do that? You can actually build it in your search engine for multiple destinations, and then they'll still like tag it as a round trip because it's to Europe and back from Europe. I also recommend looking at Delta Vacations if they work for your cities that you're flying through. Sometimes those Delta Vacation flights are like, you can get multiple hotel rooms for the same price as the flight, or even better, because they'll do a bulk air to Europe. And it's that particular segment is just to Europe with Delta that you can get typically free hotel rooms or very low cost if you bulk it with your airfare. And sometimes we don't even have people stay in those hotel rooms. So you just like book them and let them go, but it saves you such a huge amount on the air. So it's definitely something I would consider.
Well, I'm going to put you guys both on the spot here now. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about it. And I'll start with you, Kristi. But you guys started with, you had several different destinations you guys went to, and then the cruise itself stopped at a lot of different places. What do you do for planning when it comes to the ports? And that's what the show is mostly going to focus on, is the ports. But what did you use, Kristi, for planning on what you wanted to do in the ports?
I use a lot of Facebook and the Diz boards, and then just like some random Instagram accounts, but a lot, and you guys too, of course, but a lot of Diz boards, and then our cruise Facebook group too.
And how about you, Derry?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And also for me, I'm a big Rick Steves fan. So I kind of do deep dives into all the stuff he produces. And then the people that are on his forum, on his website too, tend to have like more up-to-date information as well. So
I'm sorry, put it in perspective real quick, Kristi. Derry, could you talk about who went on this cruise with you so we know who, what your family
Yeah, so it's my husband and our two kids. We have a 16-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter.
And you guys have been to Europe, I know, before and done this. So kind of old hat. Kristi, how about you?
It was my husband and I, and then my oldest son turned 13 on the trip. And then my youngest son is 11 and a half. And this was our first trip to Europe.
And when you were in Europe, did you mostly plan your excursions on your own? Did you use cruise line excursions private? Did you do a combination of them both?
Yeah, we did a combination. Just, having such a long cruise, there were so many different places. So it was our first time doing a Disney port adventure, though. So that was good. But yeah, we did a combination of DIY, third party, and Disney.
We did all private because I know my kids.
A lot of different options to help you plan. You can always start. I think that if it's a new port that we haven't been to, a lot of times I'll just go to Disney just to see what they offer, and then start branching out from there to see what they have. Well, I wanted to touch on also Disneyland Paris, because a lot of people are traveling there. I know Doug, who's going to be on the show here soon, his family went to Disneyland Paris. It was our family's first time going to Disneyland Paris, and you guys have both been there before. And I think it's an easy thing to add on to if you're in Paris, or if you're stopping through Paris on your cruise through Europe. Kristi, let's start with you. What was your overall thoughts of Disneyland Paris? Any tips that you picked up from it, and a favorite ride?
I loved the park itself, the Disneyland Paris park. The Studios park was, it was okay, but the main park was magical. Favorite ride was Big Thunder, but I always loved Big Thunder. I really loved it.
How long did you spend there?
So we spent 4 nights, and we stayed in Val d'Europe, but we only went to Disneyland for 2 days. Yeah, I loved it. I compared the Studios park to like early DCA vibes, kind of like there's some potential there, but they've got, a little ways to go. It did, I don't want to be negative. It wasn't, I'm used to Disneyland, which is, always pristine. It wasn't up to that standards, like in terms of, like keeping up on the paint and stuff like that. The drone show was incredible. Love the drone show. It's very hot. We were very hot because there's not a lot of shade. I highly recommend taking an afternoon break and take some fans. And of course, because the air conditioning there is not like our air conditioning here. So there wasn't ever really anywhere to really get cool.
So did you then commute in?
When we landed at Charles de Gaulle, I had booked us a private transfer with Prestige Transfers. So, he picked us up in a van and drove us to our hotel right outside. And then the hotel had a shuttle bus that was like a 8-minute ride into Disneyland Paris. But for a day that we went into Paris, there's an RAR station that was right there by our hotel. And we got lost on it. But that's how we got into Paris, the city. And then that's also how we got back to the airport when we were flying to London, which was tough with our suitcases and the kids. And because the train got packed, man. And it was like, hurry, let's go. Let me pull you through this crowd. But it worked well.
That's good advice.
Did you like staying there and going to Paris that way versus staying in Paris?
Well, as you say, Steve, know your family. So I know my family can only handle so many hotels per trip. So I had to pick one or the other. And Disneyland was my priority for this time. So yes, I'm glad I stayed there. If and when we go back, I'll stay in the city.
Gotcha. How about you, Derry? Where'd you guys stay and what was your overall thoughts of the park?
So we actually stayed at an Airbnb in Val d'Europe, which is, I think, where Kristi said she stayed as well. We were there actually in November during Thanksgiving. So it was a different setup. It was like Christmas decorations and not hot, really not hot, a little chilly, but also luckily it wasn't like snowing or crazy cold or anything. We had spent 3 days in Paris previously. So we just took the train, the RER train out to where Disneyland Paris is. And in the mornings of we spent like 2.5 days at the parks. And in our mornings, we just took our Airbnb was right next to the train station. So it was like literally a 3-minute train ride right into, basically the equivalent of Disney Springs that they have in Disneyland Paris. So that was our commute. And we did that mostly because the arrangements that they have, like the bedding and such, for the on-site resorts were not going to really work for our family's needs. But we always said if Disneyland Hotel, when that reopens, we definitely are going to stay there no matter what the bedding situation is. So we're holding out for that. But that all worked really well. I would definitely recommend that as an option if you're going. And I would definitely recommend going Thanksgiving if you can make that work, because obviously it's not a holiday there. So it was low crowds and easy to get around and beautiful to see their Christmas decorations. Their Christmas parade was amazing. I thought I'd never seen anything like that before. So we had a really great time. We're really glad that we got to see it.
Did you have a favorite ride?
Well, I'm just a big Thunder Mountain person. Every Disney park I've been to, that's my favorite ride. So it's kind of embarrassing, but their Big Thunder Mountain was amazing, like on its own island and everything. It's just, it's and even longer than the one we have in Florida. So I thought that was amazing. I think I have to always say that that's my favorite.
There's a, is it the Imagineering show on Disney Plus where they talk about Disneyland Paris and Big Thunder Mountain and they show it. So I think for anybody who's going or recently gone, like that would be an episode to go back and listen to because it's pretty memorable. Disneyland Paris, I haven't been, but I do know that the hotel, the Disneyland Hotel, is like on the entrance or whatever. So you walk under it. So talk about convenience of a location sometime. And I know they have like a club level there and different rooms. And then if you do buy it as a package, like your room, sometimes there's like some food, they have like included.
Breakfast and lunch combination options. They have like full board or half board. Yep. So they do that a little bit differently than what we're used to in the United States. It's actually, I would definitely recommend looking into a package if you're wanting to stay on property there, because the park ticket prices are a lot less if you bundle it that way.
And just remember that you can book your tickets like online. You can just get them that day too, but you can book them as a package with a travel agent in the United States. So whoever your travel agent that you typically work with is, we have numbers to call Disneyland Paris right here in the States, and we can take care of that, or your travel agent can take care of that for you.
Yeah. I don't know if the other Kristi, if you used the Premier Pass, because you were there in the summer, if that came in.
We did not. I thought about it, but it was a big chunk of money and we were already spending so much money. No, we did do a few, I think we only did one ride, single rider, but the lines were not, I mean, there were certain rides where it was like 90 minutes all day long, no matter what. Yes. So we did single rider for Crush and waited like 25 minutes instead of 90 minutes. I don't know. What do you think, Derry, if you really need the Premier Pass? I don't think you need it.
I didn't need it in November, but we did actually buy that same one. We bought the individual one for Crush's coaster.
But part of it depends, Steve, you talked about this in your podcast, when the European schools get out of Derry's trip, more schools were out, and Kristi's trip, kids were still in school, which would be similar to even at our parks, right? Where, the more people that are in school, the less people that are going to the parks.
Yeah, a lot of different podcasts out there. I know Joe over at Joe and Leslie at Disney Decipher, they've covered Disneyland Paris a couple different times. So check out a podcast before you go over there. A lot of different options. I thought the park was beautiful. We got lucky in the evenings when everybody's watching the drone show. We just rode rides, and I think Big Thunder had the longest line the whole time we were there, and well worth it. Although I will put my plug in for Space Mountain because I love that. And I'm not going to give away why I loved it, because it was just kind of an amazing ride. So, and I guess I'll throw this out there to your point, Kristi. I think what worked well for our family too is like flying in after a long international flight into Charles de Gaulle. We used a private transport to get to our hotel. And I think that would be the way to go if you were going to go to Disneyland Paris, is maybe use that private transport to wherever you're going to stay. And then it's easy to jump on the train on the way out to get back to the hotel. I think I would do it that way, I guess. Use private before, if you want to use the train, and use the train when you leave.
Steve, what company did you use?
I don't remember. It was like Onawake found it. It may have been the same one as Kristi, because it was like some kind of Disneyland's best transportation or something like that. Just Googled it and they were awesome. Let's turn to the cruises themselves. This is the first year the Disney Dream is over in Europe, a bigger ship, twice the size of the Magic. I was excited to see the crew over there and them having the experiences that they've had. We've touched on the Dream a lot and we've talked about the ship a lot. So I think that we don't need to go into the specifics of that, but I would love to get your guys' overall thoughts of being on the Dream in Europe, and then kind of how she did as far as like, more people. So, getting people onto and off of it. That was something that we saw them, I think, pivot and learn. Let's start with you, Kristi. You were on the Dream first. What were your thoughts about being on the Dream in Europe?
I thought everything was great. Our dining staff was fantastic, but I could see them struggling a little bit with, I think, switching to the 7-night itinerary, but they were great. I don't want to say they weren't. They were fantastic. We didn't have any waits to get on or off. Like, we didn't experience anything like that. It was all smooth sailing.
And were you on the first European cruise?
I think so.
I think so too.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a little scary boarding in Barcelona, like, at the port. They just didn't have like signs for every port arrival time. That was a little messy, but I mean, nothing really to complain about.
I feel like that's a Europe situation. And then the first cruise of every port, just keep that in mind. If it's the first time they're in Rome, or if it's the first time they're in Barcelona for the season, it's just slightly chaotic. Well, not even slightly, it's just chaotic that day. So know that going in.
And how about you, Derry? How was the Dream? You've been on the Magic before over there. What was it like being on the Dream?
Yeah, so we really loved it. The adult area is fantastic. And I guess I would say that in terms of Disney Cruise Line adapting to Europe, we did notice that they struggled with some of the supplies, which may just be the state of the world right now. In addition to, in addition to the transatlantic, this would be like the longest one that they've done so far, the 11-night. And they did start, I don't want to exaggerate it, but they were giving us smaller portions of food as we went along, like in the main dining room. And I made some jokes with people in the cruise group. One of the entrees I had said it came with a side of Brussels sprouts, and they literally took one Brussels sprout and cut it in half and put it on everyone's plate because they just did not have enough. That's okay. I can get my Brussels sprouts at the port, like not a big deal.
You got a half of Brussels sprout.
Yeah. And like 1 tablespoon of mashed potatoes per plate, like literally. Stuff like that. They ran out of ginger ale. They ran out of gluten-free ice cream cones, which was a real problem on, deck 11. But they did get some at some point later on. Anyway, so there are just things like that we realized, okay, they're just not. And there were, just like every cruise since the beginning of the summer, there's been a lot of people upset about the lack of 25th anniversary merchandise. And so that first day when the shops opened after sail away, I went down there to see, and people were literally like yelling at the crew members, which obviously is not appropriate. But I think Disney Cruise Line would do well to be a little more direct about the lack of merchandise ahead of time, just so that guests can have the right expectations heading in.
But you guys had merch, right, Derry? Or is there no merch in Europe for the 25th at all?
There was a lot of Dream in Europe merchandise, like
which was cool.
Steve was showing an awesome photo of his Tervis today. They have some adorable shirts and Tervis and stuff with that on it, but they didn't have anything for the 25th anniversary.
I couldn't remember if it was just for Kristi's cruise that they didn't get any, or the whole season. So yeah, they need, you know what? That's a simple email ahead of time. Say, look, kids, sorry, it didn't make it to Europe for whatever reason. And
yeah, that would have helped, I think.
You can ship stuff across the country. Or across countries. Do they know that over there at Disney?
Yeah, it's a big black box. I have no idea what the situation is with the merchandise. It's just that, a lot of people asked, will there be more? Like, will future cruises have them? And they told us no.
Yeah, I think that was kind of a disappointment for a lot of people that were looking to celebrate the 25th as far as that goes. But I was glad to look at the glass half full. I was glad to see them actually have some Europe merchandise this year, which they didn't even have that last year. Last year, it was like the 50th Walt Disney World stuff that they got on board, which was
right.
not so great.
And of course, the in-cabin gifts all had the 25th on it. So I think those are, come included with your cruise. So I think you can look at it that way too.
Right.
For repeat cruisers.
But yeah, for repeat. That's right. For repeat cruisers.
To your point, Kristi, too, I kind of felt that same way too. Like, I felt like our dining team, we really enjoyed them, but they were just rushed the whole time. They felt like, and it, to me, it just feels like the DNA. And I think I talked about this in our snippets where, you think as a company, everything is the same across the board, but really the DNA is part of the people and who's leading the people. And I feel like, give it a couple more months and hopefully they'll kind of settle down a little bit more, because they just seem like they were in that, we got to turn in 3 or 4 days kind of mode versus, hey, we're going to have you guys for 7 days. Let's just relax and get to know you a little bit. And I talked about Gabriel, who was on our cruise last year, and he was just like totally relaxed and kind of a chill. And then our guys, I mean, it wasn't bad. It was still great service. We enjoyed it, but you could just kind of get that sense across the ship.
Yeah. Here's what I've noticed though, across all the cruises I've taken this year. I've been on 3 different cruise lines. Everyone's understaffed.
And they give you that too.
I think that even DCL is suffering from this, and everybody's having a hard time filling their ships. And as new ships continue to be built, and there's 2,000 more workers that need to get on this ship, or 1,500 more workers that need to get, there's not an infinite number of people willing to work those numbers of hours per week and leave their families, right? And all the things that are associated with a cruise line employee. I definitely think there's a bit of that going on every cruise line.
No, good points there. But I was excited to see, and Kristi, were any of your ports a little bit later? Because usually Disney tends to leave like 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and we had several that were 8 o'clock.
Yes.
I was excited to see them do that.
Yeah, they like adjusted that like a week before or something. Like, I think we stayed till 7 in most ports, where before it was like leaving at like 5:30 or something like that. So yeah, that was really nice.
And Derry, I think yours is the same way.
Yeah, definitely. They extended the hours, and that was really exciting when that happened.
Okay, well, let's turn to the ports themselves. And you guys didn't go on the exact same cruise, but you had a couple similar stops. So we'll definitely explore those. We'll start with Kristi's cruise. You were on a 7-night, just kind of the classic out of Barcelona Mediterranean cruise. Left out of Barcelona. You stopped in Cannes, Livorno, Naples, Rome, and then back to Barcelona. And then for those following at home, Derry had the 11-night. Oh, I'm so jealous.
Oh my God.
In a good way, though. So you guys left out of Civitavecchia, Rome, stopped in Messina, Sicily. I'm excited to hear about that. Hopefully that was fun. Athens, Santorini, Mykonos, Naples, Livorno, which is your stop into Pisa, and Florence, if you want to go there, Toulon, which is Provence, and then getting off in Barcelona. So let's just start with let's start with you, Kristi. Since you were on the first cruise, you guys left out of Barcelona, and your first stop was Cannes. What you guys have planned there, and what were your overall thoughts of that port?
So that was the only port I didn't book a tour. We just got off and walked around. My youngest said it was his favorite port because he got to explore, and we didn't have any, there was no schedule set. It was nice, We went down to the beach right there. We didn't swim. We just walked around.
Is it a tender port there? We tendered.
Yes,
remember?
I think it was.
Okay.
Did you have to take a train to get, or is it like once you get off the tender, is it right where you're at?
Once you got off the tender, like you walked up on like a seawall and, got into town. But so it was also the day of the Monaco Grand Prix.
Oh.
So we had a small selection, even if I'd chosen to do an excursion, it was a very limited selection. And then some people tried to go to Monaco, and then there was like a car accident or something, and they couldn't get back up. They just barely made the ship, from what I understand. So anyway, that was the other reason that we just stayed right there, because I didn't want a chance missing the ship. No, you just walk. You just walk everywhere. There was one of the excursions was some kind of little train. We saw it I don't know. It reminded me like a grown-up version of the little trains that they have at the mall,
I can't believe that that's an excursion, because I remember seeing that too. But if you like cars or boats, it's a great place to look at some very expensive cars and some big boats, which is kind of cool. And the Cannes Film Festival's there. I remember we walked by that.
Yeah.
Well, let's turn to you then, Derry. So I guess Kristi's is the classic Mediterranean. Derry's yours is kind of like Greece and the Mediterranean. You guys leave out of Rome, and your first stop is Sicily. How was that? What were you excited to do there?
Yeah, it was really beautiful. We got to go through the Straits of Messina, which I know is a favorite of yours, Steve. That was really cool. So we arrived at 10:30 in the morning. That was our latest. It was scheduled that way. That was our latest arrival time of any of the ports. And that was actually great, since it was day 2. So there's always kind of this hecticness of getting on the cruise initially. So it was nice. We did the DCL port adventure that's called Taormina on your own. And Taormina is a city a small town, about 45 minutes away from Messina. So we just basically took the bus up there. And then I had used this website called The Fork, which is a lot like Open Table here in the US, to reserve lunch for us at a restaurant. I just wanted to be kind of ahead of the crowd and get something booked, because I knew that my family would be all about the food in Sicily. So, in every port, but especially in Sicily. So we had a really nice lunch there. And I'll just mention The Fork, because if you pre-book on their site, you often get a discount. We got 30% off, which turned out to be pretty substantial savings at the end of the day. And then we just walked around the town. We had a Rick Steves walking tour thing that we followed. And they're famous for their granita, which is, kind of like sorbet. So we had some of that, and then took the bus back to the port. So it was really beautiful, just beautiful Mediterranean views. It's a really up high on cliffs kind of a location. So it was a really nice day.
So it sounded like you guys both kind of did something similar. Well, our first day was crazy, but you guys kind of, after the hectic day of the first day, kind of having an easy port day to start off with, to kind of relax and get into the cruise. From there, Derry, you guys go to Athens, which, that's a busy city. How did Athens work for you guys?
Yeah, so we were really undecided how to tackle Athens. We ended up doing it totally DIY, which was not our initial thought, but that's what we ended up doing. So we took, let's see, how did we get there again? I think we took a taxi to the Acropolis, and there's 2 ways to attack that, right? You can go immediately when you first get to Athens, or another way to beat the crowds is to go much later in the day. But try to avoid, it's kind of like going to Disney World, try to avoid that middle of the daytime when everyone's there. So we did the sort of immediate thing, which worked pretty well, because the ship actually came in at 6 a.m.
Oh,
so we didn't get off then, but we had plenty of time to, get up and get ready and get out and still beat the other. I think there were 5 or 6 cruise ships in port that day. So we really enjoyed that. And then we saw the Acropolis Museum, and we walked around the Plaka neighborhood and I'm not sure I can pronounce this correctly, the Montesteraki neighborhood, which is adjacent to the Plaka neighborhood, and had some lunch there, at a Greek restaurant. That was really fun. And then it was getting pretty hot, and kind of our, family kind of times out at that point. So we went back to the ship. Turned out to be a really good laundry day. If you get back to the ship early, that's always, I feel the best time on a port day. That's the right time to do your laundry.
The Acropolis, did you guys book a guide once you got there?
We didn't. We had like our own thing that we were following. We're pretty big on that. But yeah, we did sometimes use guides during this cruise, but not on that day.
With the ship being there a little bit longer too, that makes it nice to actually do what you said, as far as like, let the crowds die down a little bit and maybe get down to the Acropolis a little bit later, because especially what we had last year was kind of crazy crowd wise.
So now you guys both went to Florence. Now, Derry went at the end of her trip, but Kristi went sort of in the middle. So why don't we're going to hit you both at the same time for what you did in the Livorno, Florence, Pisa.
Okay, so for Livorno, we booked a tour with Your Tour in Italy by Aldo Monti. So they picked us up at 8:00 at the gangplank. Our driver was great. He drove us, all around. We saw Santa Croce, Piazza della Signore with David, and we ate there. And then, we did all of that. And then in the afternoon, he drove us to Pisa to climb the tower, and they booked the tickets for us. And when we got there, he said, don't dawdle, because we were close to our ticket time. And he said, they're very strict. So keep that in mind if you're going to climb the tower. So we climbed the tower. My little one and I climbed the tower. And then that's where I saw the subway mascot. That was exciting. And then he just drove us back to the ship. And the characters were in their Italian outfits that night.
That's awesome. Do you remember about how much your tour cost? Do you want to share it, or do you care?
I kept good records of all of that this time. Let me see. My Pisa tour was $739 for the 4 of us. And then a tip.
But it was private, and
yes, it was, again, it was just the 4 of us. And then we could, they could adjust to whatever we wanted to see. So yeah. It was good.
I know we talked about this a lot, but one of the advantages of being on those private tours, especially in Europe, is, you're not with 40 or 50 people on a bus. So you get a little bit more, you can be a lot more flexible, and you don't have to wait for everybody to get on and off the bus and everything like that. So sometimes you get to see a lot more. So definitely appreciate that. How about you, Derry? What did you guys do in Florence?
Yeah. So by the time we got to Livorno, I think a lot of us were ready for a break from our lovely, really active cruise. So we split up, and my husband took the train on his own to Florence for the day. And I guess I should back up one step and say our original plan was we were all going to take the Tuscany bus to the town of Lucca, which is like a walled city in that region. But we changed that plan, and my husband decided to take the train to Florence, and my son decided to stay on the ship. So my daughter and I took the train on our own over to Pisa. So we did not climb the tower because we hadn't made any reservations or anything like that, but we did really enjoy that. Just like walking around is it called the Field of Miracles? I'm not sure I have that right, but that whole area where the tower is located is a really beautiful place with these marble buildings and great history. And then we went to a deli and ordered sandwiches, which were like some of our best food that we had the whole trip. So I always recommend, maybe not the Subway every time, but if you want to try
please don't go to Subway
sandwich places. And it was a great adventure. I actually don't think, my daughter is the 13-year-old. I don't think she'd ever been in a situation like that before, where we were just like winging something in Europe in a country where we don't speak the language. And, we had to figure out how to get bus tickets to get from the port to the train station, and how do you validate your tickets, and, how do you know where to get off and all that. So it was kind of cool. I haven't backpacked through Europe for like 30 years now, but for me, that was a fun day because I got to show her a little bit about how you figure these things out, like on the fly, if it's not prearranged. And of course, we enjoyed the train ride. It's just a beautiful area, and I would love to go back and see more of Tuscany one day.
And the Rick Steves books, if you were ever going to go and do Florence, especially on your own, or take the train to Pisa or to Florence, etc., Rick Steves really explains how to go from point to point. I know we did it on our own 12, 13 years ago, and it was just because we were able to use this book as an example of how to do it.
Yeah, we actually had, that was my daughter's job, was to carry the book. So we had we had his Mediterranean cruise port book, and that was all in there. So it actually told us how to get on the bus that we needed to get to the train station. Otherwise, I don't think we would have known it. Actually, it was so detailed. It said, wait at the bus stop outside of the H&M store. So
that's awesome.
Okay, I think we can do that.
And for those of you who love the app like I do, I give it a little plug for the tech savvy people. You can always plug it into your smartphone if you've got service over there too. And it does a really good job of getting transportation in the different cities. It might be a little bit different on, in the smaller towns and stuff like that, like where you're going, Derry. So.
All right, T-Mobile man.
My husband Google Maps all of that, and it tells him, like what number train to take at what time and things. So yeah, that's definitely a good alternative.
I want to jump in. This is a question we got quite a bit. How did you guys do your euros and money this time? Kristi, did you have any strategies as far as paying for things, getting euros out of ATMs? What did your family do?
So when I booked all of our tours, I paid all of that up front with a credit card with no foreign transaction fee. And then when we got to Barcelona, I think I had to hit 2 different ATM. I had to spread it out over 2 days. So I didn't get any euros or anything until we got to Europe, and that worked well.
How about you, Derry?
Yeah, similar situation. There were a couple tours that you give them a credit card number in advance just to hold your reservation, but they insist on cash payment when you get there. And so since there's 4 of us, some of those amounts were pretty large. So we actually had a strategy for like the first part of our trip. We were in Rome for a little bit before we started. So we spread out our ATM visits over a few days to build up enough euros for that we would need like later. And then we can always get more as you go at the ports too. But that was the main thing in advance that I was worried about, was trying to get enough of those without freezing our bank account so we could pay off some of these tours.
I'll give a huge plug too. Be careful, because I was looking at Rick Steves again. There's only one bank ATM in Charles de Gaulle Airport. So all the rest of the ATMs you see are privately owned ones, and they do not give you a very good exchange rate. So that's another strategy. If you're over there, just always look for those ones that are associated with a bank, because that's going to give you your best exchange rate. So from there, before we go to Greece with you, Derry, let's stay in Italy. You're stopped at almost every cruise down there. Stops at is Naples. Unfortunately, I know Adventures by Kristi was all booked up this year, so you guys were not able to book with her. I don't know what she was doing. I think she was like in Animal Kingdom or something like that, doing something there. But what were your thoughts of Naples, Derry, and what did you guys do there?
Well, I feel like we need to get some commission from Rick Steves at this point, but I actually, speaking of Rick Steves, his company is partnered with one other touring company in the world, and it offers day excursions out of Naples and Sorrento in Italy, and it's called Mondo Shared Tours. So we booked that for the 4 of us, and the one that we chose went from the port up to Positano on the Amalfi Coast, and then Sorrento, and then had a guided tour of Pompeii at the end. So that was our favorite excursion of all the ones that we did. It was just really beautiful. We had an hour in each of those towns, and then our Pompeii tour was probably closer to 2 hours. But we had great weather the entire cruise. We got so lucky with that. It was never super hot. You can see how that late afternoon in Pompeii could be really hot. So just make sure if you go to bring like a sunbrella with you, or a good hat and water and sunblock. But yeah, it was great. We had a fantastic guide. The shared tours are 19 people in a minibus with a driver and a guide. So she narrated our journey the entire day.
And then how about you, Kristi?
So we did a private tour with AP Tours that took us to Herculaneum. So they picked us up, from the ship and everything, and drove us to Herculaneum, which was incredible. It was amazing. And we had a private guide. So if you book, like whoever you book through, you can request a guide, because there's like a pool. You have to be certified to be a guide, and there's a pool and whatever. So our guide's name was Michael Fiorentino. If anybody wants a guide that's good with kids, he's a former ABD guide. He was great. And we loved it. It was amazing. Our 13-year-old loved it because he just learned about all of that in school. And then after Herculaneum, we went to a pizza making class and made pizza, and then ate our pizza. And was
that the same tour?
Yes, same tour. So we had a driver that just took us all day. And so we did the pizza class, and then we did like a little city driving tour and stopped for the best gelato I've ever had in my life. It was incredible. So it was a great day. That's tied for my first place tour, my favorite tour.
That sounds incredible.
It was a lot of fun.
That's good to hear, because I think Naples is like one of those ports that, it's Pompeii, right? And then you can get Amalfi and all that stuff. And I don't know, you never hear a lot of people really talk about Naples, I guess, as far as
it was really our guide.
Seeing the city, so it was a guide that really made it for you.
Yes, it was our guide that made it. Yeah.
For the listeners, remember, Pompeii is like the bigger site of the ruins from the volcano eruption. And Herculaneum was like a little city further south, north, one of the directions that is smaller. And it was like a smaller city that also got taken out by the volcano ash eruption, similarly located. And Herculaneum's just smaller.
So I know this causes people trepidation. You guys did all these like private tours. Did you ever feel nervous about getting back to the ship, Kristi?
I never did. No.
No, I get why people, especially people who haven't gone before, would be worried about that, but I was never worried about
I mean, you guys booked with pretty reputable, excursions too, and it's in their interest to get you back there because they don't want to.
Right.
They don't want the feedback being negative to not get you back there. So I think that's. But the first time going to Europe, I totally understand why people mostly book with Disney Cruise Line, but after that, I think you can find that it's pretty safe that you're going to get back there in time if you book with a reputable company. So,
and don't push it. Don't book a tour because you're still responsible for watching your own times. So if your time at a dock is 10 to 6, don't pick a tour that is 10 to 5:45. Like just, so be smart about it and know that sometimes the traffic backs up leading into port near the departure time. And that could be an issue. So just don't book things at the last minute.
Okay, let's turn to Greece. You got, 3 stops, I guess, really with Athens, but you get 2 stops at 2 just beautiful islands, kind of different islands, Santorini and Mykonos. Derry, could you talk about those 2 stops?
Yeah, that was amazing. I had never been to Greece before. So Athens was amazing. And then the islands were so beautiful. We did have some of the issues that I know a lot of other cruises have been having this summer going into Greece or into Santorini in particular, where they've had to stagger the port excursion times to alleviate a lot of backup at the cable car because of the way Santorini is situated. Most guests, if they're coming in by cruise, will have to take a cable car to get up to the actual town of Fira. So I actually, for that reason, had purposely booked a DCL excursion because the DCL excursions, most of them tender you to a different starting point where the bus can pick you up and you begin your excursion without needing to start with the cable car. Unfortunately, ours was one of the ones that was bumped at the last minute to a later start time. So we'd had an 8 a.m. start time and they bumped us up to noon. And we have some sensory things and such in our family. So we don't want to do, in our case, we really can't do a late afternoon adventure in the heat of the bright sun and all that. We like to get out really early, have several hours in the morning, have a good lunch, and then get back to the ship is really what works best for us. So luckily, they were really flexible. I'll say my one complaint was they never notified me that was changed. I just happened to notice the night before as I was flipping through the app, and 2 days before it had not changed. And then like the night before, anyway, so I found that frustrating. But once I went to guest services, they said, don't worry, we're going to leave a message for the Port Adventures team. I'm pretty sure they can cancel this for you and get you your money back, which they did. So no complaints there. But then it did leave us without a specific plan, like at the last minute. But we did get out really early, docked early. We got in line. We showed up at the Disney Theater to get the ticket for the first tender. So that was great. We were no wait at all for the cable car, got to the top, found a driver, and we went to see the town of Ia, which is really beautiful. So we got there super early and really enjoyed that. And then we took the public bus back to Fira once we had spent several hours enjoying Ia. And it was funny, the public bus was like the plushest bus I've ever seen. I was like, not what I was expecting at all. It was like €0.80 per person. And it was like this velvet, I don't know, it was like very, very plush, very beautiful, like a beautiful ride back. And yeah, we had lunch at a great restaurant and just walked around Fira, did shopping, just really enjoyed it all. Took lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of photos. We split up at that point. I went to do more shopping, and my husband and the kids were going to go back to the ship. So they walked over to where the cable car takes you down, and they messaged me and said, oh, it's like an hour and a half wait, which, we've heard about all of this and we anticipated that. And they said, we're going to try like walking down and see how that goes. If it's not good, we'll come back up and wait. And they walked down and made it down. And so they said that was, it was a little bit slippery, but it's okay. So they recommended that I walk down too, which I did. I found it more slippery, even though I had on shoes with like good tread. There were kind of people falling all around me, and I had Band-Aids in my bag. So I was helping these people from all different nations. Luckily, nothing serious that I witnessed, but it was very slippery in my observation. But yeah, we all made it back, and it was not very far. It was probably about 25 minutes, I guess I would say, walking down. It would have been better to be able to use the cable car, but if that was an easy option, but this was okay. So I don't say no. Like it was funny that the cruise line was saying, please don't use the donkey path. Like they emphasized that several times. I think that if you do have good tread shoes and are not in a hurry, and just make sure that you're going carefully down, that it is an okay option. Mykonos, that we always had intended to do DIY, just reading about people's experiences there. So we did have another one that's also amazingly beautiful. We kind of got lost a little bit in the Little Venice section of Mykonos, which is really cool, like really narrow twisty alleyways with lots of cats, which made my daughter super happy, and just such friendly people. I was trying to find this cafe. It took me like 40 minutes to find this cafe because I got all tangled up in the maze, but I did finally find it. And it's amazing that there'd be this cafe in the middle of this huge maze of like residential homes. Yeah, that was amazing. And there was like a beach nearby that we stopped by, which was also really beautiful. We're not big beach people, but we just love to see the ocean and, experience it a little bit. So that was also a really beautiful day.
I'd used my phone a couple of times. I cheated to get through those because it was you can totally get lost back in there. But just an amazing, just so many cool little sights. You come around a corner and see like just these little doors painted different colors, and like you said, the cats everywhere. We really enjoyed that time in Mykonos. And yeah, to your point on the donkey path, it seemed like it was easier this year, but maybe it was because it's the second time we did it. But yeah, definitely have good shoes if you're going to go down that, and know your limits, I guess. I wish there was a better way I wish it wasn't such a bottleneck to get down, I guess. I wish there was a better way, but it just is what it is.
What are you slipping on? Like, why is it like donkey pee that's making it wet?
No, it's sort of it's like the Acropolis where the stones have been worn so smooth that and they're like, sometimes they're like tilted. There's no railing and they're tilted down a little bit. And so it doesn't necessarily even look slippery. It's not until you're on it, if you put your body weight on it, that you can lose your balance a little bit.
We had some great views from there, and it smells like a barn. Yeah, I know, right up your alleyway, Kristi, there. Well, cool. Well, let's turn back to you, Kristi. You guys go to Rome, a big stop there. So many different things to see there. A little bit. Civitavecchia is what? I think it's like 45 minutes to an hour outside of Rome.
Hour and 15 or something.
Hour and 15 or so. What did you guys have planned, and what did you guys get to see there?
So we booked a golf cart tour with My Best Tour, and they, again, picked us up at the Gangplank and drove us into Rome. And because they have the golf cart, they can get you like just right up on everything. So I feel like we got to see a lot more because we were quicker going in between places. So we covered, almost everything. And we even threw in the catacombs. We went to Trevi Fountain, Spanish Steps. We started in that park around the Villa Borghese, and then just went all around. It was beautiful. We loved it.
Sorry, how does that work with the golf cart? Like, I have never seen a golf cart driving through Rome before.
I think he said that this was only like the second year.
They were all over this year. I saw a whole bunch of them, and then they had it came down so they could even kind of air condition some of them and everything like that. So.
And they have like nighttime tours that are lit up like crazy at night. If you can do a night.
And you can just drive through the city.
Yeah, they're just
so we were like, yeah, on the streets, and then like on the cobblestone, like I said, like right up to the Spanish Steps. It was great. It was perfect for the kids. They rode on the back, so they were seated backwards. They had a great time.
That's so cool.
It was great. It was awesome. He did. So we were there on June 1st, and our guide made note because there were a bunch of flyovers of jets or whatever. And he's like, oh, they're practicing for our holiday tomorrow, which was like the Fiesta della Repubblica or something. So he said, it's a good thing you're here on the 1st, because if you were here tomorrow, it would be a madhouse. It would just be craziness. So, future, keep in mind, June 2nd, avoid it in Rome. But it was great. We loved it. It was fantastic.
Well, what a great way to see the city, because I mean, there's like so many different things to see, and having the golf cart to get you around to all those different things and take it in. That sounds like just a great way to do it.
Yes. If and well, when we go back, I really wanted to go inside the Coliseum. So that's the only negative, is that you're hitting a lot of places, but you're not spending a lot of time there.
You know, when we went into it, it looks so much, since you're down you're in California, you can just go over to USC and look at their Coliseum, because it looked just like that. I'm telling you, it's amazing how it just things have not changed from when they built that. Well, they are the Trojans too. Is that Trojans, or is that Roman Trojans? I'm like losing my ancient history. Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of finish it up then with you, Derry. Your final port was Toulon, which is in Provence. What did you guys? What was there to do there? I don't even know what there is to do.
Well, there were a lot of different tours that DCL offered to, like the Aix-en-Provence, which is one of the more famous towns in the region. You could also possibly go to Nice, as I recall. They had some beach day options. There's a couple towns really close to Toulon that have great beaches. And there's another, I think it's the town called Cassis, Cassis, where they have these calanques, that like these caves you can kayak into. So those were a lot of the options that DCL offered. We had signed up for another one of those where they, on your own kind of DCL port adventures, where they take you to a town and they bring you back afterwards. And we had signed up to visit Bormes-les-Mimosas, which is a hillside town known for its mimosa flowers. But our daughter woke up with a sore throat that morning. And so we just wanted to be really cautious with her health and with the health of everyone else. So we canceled that. Well, actually, we didn't cancel it. We just didn't go. We knew it was too late to cancel. So we just didn't attend it. We left the kids on the ship, and my husband and I walked into Toulon, and it was really interesting. It's basically, I think, as far as I understand, it's the main base for the French Navy. And so you can see, like, they have one aircraft carrier in France, and it's ported there. But they have this amazing maritime history, which is of great interest to my husband. So we went to their naval museum, and it was really cool, like really well done. I would definitely recommend that if anyone is interested in maritime history. And also they have an amazing market 6 days of the week. And we spent a lot of time in the market, like beautiful produce, cheese and sausage. Not very many crepes actually in that town. Thought that was interesting. Like crepes are apparently not, I was talking to one of the shopkeepers there. Crepes are not like a big thing in the south of France. It's more north is where those are more popular. But yeah, we had great lunch. Like, it's all about the food for us. We had a great lunch and walked around the town, took lots of pictures, and then went back to the ship. That was really our last day. So I actually did some more laundry because I knew we had some time in Barcelona coming up. So once again, did my laundry thing where if I'm back early on a port day, I hit the laundry room. So
we found that 5 o'clock is a great time to do it too, when people go to that early dinner. So there's like on those days as well. Look, well, just amazing cruises. I'm glad that you and your families had the opportunity to see so many different places. Kristi, we're going to finish up, talk a little bit about London with you, but Kristi, any other final thoughts about these cruises in general?
One thing to remember, we're going to start putting this in podcast more just because people don't seem to know. When you book a DCL excursion, you have to cancel it 3 days before the cruise starts, not 3 days before the excursion, if you want a refund. However, if something comes up where you're sick, I would still go to the port excursion desk. There may be an opportunity to have a wait list, and there may be an opportunity to get a refund. So like if somebody was waiting, so just as something like, you might not get your money back. My mom didn't go on one of our tours in Alaska, and they were like, we're sorry, there's no refunds available, which was fine, but at least they knew she wasn't coming. And if there was the opportunity, take that. And then before we sort of leave the cruise for both of you, you both had teenagers or tweens, right? And I was curious if they utilized the kids clubs at all, what they thought. So Derry, did your kids go to the kids club at all?
So we signed them up on the first night for Vibe. So my 13-year-old could go into Vibe if we went and signed a waiver. So we did that because the official start age is 14, but 13 is kind of like that in-between age where you can go to Edge or Vibe. the intention that our kids had was that they were going to go to some of the smoothie opportunities, the smoothie bar opportunities and vibe, and maybe a scavenger hunt. One of them liked the idea of the talent show. But yeah, in reality, they I think they only got there for like a few minutes across the cruise. We did have 2 fireworks nights. And so we saw that there was like some groups from the vibe were like meeting up for that. And there was a little bit of overlap there. Yeah, not as much use as I was hoping.
I was just going to say, Steve, you didn't have any fireworks, right, on your cruise?
Not in Greece. They can't do them in Greece. So I'm guessing they were probably up in the Med.
Yeah. So, and then Kristi, did you have fireworks?
I think we did. I've only, you know what, this was our 10th cruise. I've only seen the fireworks once because, you know, I'm like 7:30 shower time for bed. No. Who's staying up that late?
I mean, the other Steve's family, but they're also eating dinner until 10:30. So you might as well just walk up to the fireworks after that. Okay. So Kristi, your kids were 13.
So 11 and 12. Well, the 12-year-old didn't turn 13 until we got off the ship. So usually they're like heavy into the kids club. And this time they weren't. And I think it was because we were just so exhausted, you know, and we also hadn't been on the Dream since 2016. So that virtual sports deck, like we were all over that thing. Like we were constantly in there. So yeah, that's where they spent most of their time.
Okay, really quick. We never talk about the virtual sports deck. Like maybe in our 300 and some shows, we've spent 5 seconds there. Do you have to schedule everything in advance? Or can you like walk?
Yeah.
Okay. So so did you guys make all your reservations before the cruise?
Yes. I think I had like 6 slots. Like I feel a little bit bad that I took up so many slots, but we used every single one of them. They loved it. It was a blast. The little sensors will get off sometimes. And so like, I think there was twice, like 2 sessions that they gave us for free because the sensors were off and they like moved us over to golf instead of the sports or whatever. But yeah, they had a blast.
Yeah. So what did you sign up for? Did you sign up for, and so let's just talk about it really quick, what it is. So who's going to give a description of what this is? Kristi, give us a description of what it is.
Okay. So it's up like on the very top deck, like you can almost walk by it and miss it. And they've got curtains, you know, to keep it dark in there. And on the left-hand side is golf, where it's like this screen with like, you know, they've got sensors on it or whatever. And you just pick a golf club and set a ball down and whack it into the screen and it, you know, rolls across your virtual golf course. And then on the right-hand side, there's a whole bunch of different sports to choose from. Like there was hockey, there was soccer, there was basketball, there was football, there was rugby, I think, maybe even bowling. Yes. So you just, you know, scroll through whatever sport you want to play. They had a good time.
And how much is it? And how long are each session? Each
session was 30 minutes. And I think it was like $13 or $16. One was more expensive than the other, and I can't remember which one was more expensive. I mean, it was very affordable. Yeah, it was a good time. They had a blast. We let our oldest wear flip-flops to golf one day, and of course the ball ended up smacking his toe. So wear some closed-toed shoes.
It's not per person. It's just one. It's just $13. So you just sign up one person, then anybody can go and use it. If that makes sense.
So your whole family, it's $13 for your family, however many people you want to send for the half hour or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Before we touch on 2 final thoughts, London and the VAT tax, late or early dining, what worked better for you guys? Any thoughts?
Yeah, this is only our 3rd cruise, but we've done late dining every time, and that's worked out the best for us. Obviously, I mean, I think it's pretty common knowledge that if it's possible for your family to eat late and you're in this port heavy cruises, that's going to probably work out better for you.
And how about you, Kristi? Which I think I know
we already know she's going to bed at 7:30. She's taking her shower. She's not going to dinner at 8:15.
You know what? We've even tried to do late dining. Like in Alaska, we signed up for late dining. I think on our double dip, we signed up for late dining. And then we were just automatically moved to first dining. Like, it's meant to be. We're just first dining people.
There you go.
So, and did you have any issues with your port excursions with early dining?
No. All of our port excursions either had us back by 4 or 5 p.m.
Okay, I won't dwell on too many other things, but somebody else asked this question. What's your favorite thing to do on a sea day? Just give me one quick answer, Kristi.
I just love to hang out and watch the kids swim or run around and, you know, eat as many ice cream cones as I can.
A nice relaxing day. How about you, Derry?
Yeah, same. Just Sapphire Falls. That was my favorite place. It was my first time on the Dream, and I thought that was just really, really nice.
And before we leave the Dream, do you guys have any tips, any cruising tips for either people going to Europe or just for tips for the ship?
Two last topics then. The VAT tax, which is something that you can get returned back to you. It's a tax in Europe. Kristi, you had some thoughts on that.
So I went, I think it was the second to last night to, I think it was Mickey's Mainsail or whatever. You have to take your passport and then the credit card that you want that money refunded to, and then your receipt. So I only had 2 receipts, but the manager that did it took maybe 10 minutes, but the manager who did it said, "Thank you for coming tonight instead of the last night." Because she said on the last night, they like set up a table and the line is super long, and then I had to do it in Barcelona because that's where we got off the ship. So in the airport, you had to find the Diva machine. And there was a girl standing there that was supposed to help you. She was not very helpful. Like, you scan the little barcodes that the manager gave me from Mickey's Mainsail. And then she just said that was it. But luckily, my cruise had a WhatsApp group, and I just happened to feel it on my watch, and it was saying, "Don't forget to put your receipts in the yellow mailboxes across from the VAT." I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness we haven't gone through security yet. So all that Diva machine's before security, I should have said that. So anyway, I ran back and dropped our receipts in these big yellow, they look like giant fire hydrants, but it wasn't obvious when you're in the VAT place. And then we did it at Disneyland Paris too, because I had a couple of receipts from Disneyland Paris, and I did that at guest services. But I asked in the store, like, where can I do this? And then we took the Eurostar. I Googled where to scan that. I think I got like $75 back.
If this sounds foreign to you, what we're talking about, Google VAT, V-A-T. You can read up on it, but it's definitely, you can definitely get some of your money back that you're going to be taxed on throughout Europe. So, and they have to tax you on the ships as well, unfortunately, because the ship's in Europe, I guess. So
even for your drinks.
Even for your drinks. Well, before we leave, you guys got off in Barcelona. It sounds like you took the Eurostar over to, you went to Paris, and then you eventually take the Eurostar to London. A lot of cruises leaving out of London, out of Southampton right now and next year. What did you guys do in London, Kristi?
So we spent, I think, 5 or 6 nights there. I can't remember now, but we did a bicycle tour with Breakaway Bike Tours. That was one of our favorite things of the whole trip. That was a lot of fun. And then this is where my son turned 13. So the night he turned 13, we did this thing called Ceremony of the Keys, which is like this big pomp and circumstance at the Tower of London of how they lock it up. Like, they've been doing it for like 700 years. And so to get tickets for that, you have to go on to the Historic Royal Palace's website the first working Monday of the month before you want tickets. So I wanted tickets for June. So I had to do it the first working Monday of May, which ended up being a holiday. So I had to get up at 2 a.m. 2 days in a row. It was a process. It was like Run Disney flashbacks trying to get these tickets, but they're only $5 a piece. And it was well worth it. It was really cool. My kids loved it. There's only 50 people allowed each night to attend. So I highly recommend that. It was really awesome. And we also did the Harry Potter studio tour. It was cool. I don't want to sound negative. It's going to sound negative. It was cool. But last year we did Harry Potter in Florida, in Orlando, which is different from Hollywood, right? Where we've been a million times. So I just kept comparing everything, even though I shouldn't, because they're 2 totally different things. But if you just had to choose, I would do Florida. We were there for 4 hours. It's a lot of walking around and looking at stuff. So keep that in mind if you're wanting to take, your 6-year-old kid there. Yeah, it's a lot of walking and looking. It was cool, but not as cool as Florida, in our opinion.
So it's basically like a museum then. You're looking at artifacts from the movies.
Yes, very much. I mean, and they do have a lot of set pieces. Like when you first go in, you go into the Great Hall, and they've got like the candles hanging from the ceiling. That was awesome. Like, I got tears in my eyes walking through that. And they have a ton of costume pieces and all of that. And then you learn about how they, film some things, and it was cool. It was cool. I also carried our 2 wands from Universal Hollywood in our our carry-on suitcases all the way across over there. And then I get there, I'm like, okay, boys, let's go take some pictures, on these set pieces. No, thanks. So I took pictures with the wands, and then we bought a wand. So I took 2 over there and came home with 3. But
Did they work?
No. I just took them for pictures.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I know. I was just wondering if the actual spells work over in England. And so, no, okay.
No, they should add that. It would make it a little more exciting. And there's also every day they said there's field trips from schools. There were 2 schools there when we were there. And then I ended up in line with them when we were checking out at the gift shop. So just prepare yourself. And then the gift shops along the way, like I thought, I'm just going to wait till the end and they'll have all the same stuff there at the end. They don't. So stop in every gift shop. And if you see something there, you got to get it there because it's probably not going to be at the end. It was a very long day, but it was cool. Very long day.
Well, some good tips there.
At the end of a trip.
Definitely a tough way to end the trip. And then as you head home. Well, thank you too so much for coming on and sharing you guys' experiences on these trips. I'd be remiss if we don't always finish up to find out what's going on next. I guess we'll just start with you, Derry. Where is your family headed next? What do you guys have planned? And it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Well, our next Disney related travel is we're going to visit Walt Disney World the week before Christmas this year. We haven't been there at Christmas before, so that'll be fun for us. We were going to go in September, but it was getting complicated with my son's going to be a junior in high school this year. It was getting too stressful trying to anticipate how that was going to work for him. So now instead of having 3 days, we have 7 days. So even though I have to wait longer, I'm happy with this outcome. So that's our next Disney travel that we've got planned.
It's so beautiful that time of year. It's just all the hotels. Obviously, you know this, but go around and just see the different lobbies and the decorations they just make you so happy.
Yeah, I was there for marathon weekend this year, but a lot of stuff had already been taken down by the time I was trying to see some of it. So yeah, I'm excited to see it at the peak.
Right. And not January 14th, because honestly, who needs to see the Christmas trees still? It doesn't hit the same at all.
And how about you, Kristi? What's next for you and your family?
Well, for the first time in forever, we don't have a cruise booked and I'm kind of sad about it, but they need some new itineraries. So we have, Run Disney's Return to Disneyland, all registered for that in January. Very excited. And then I think we're going to try and do Washington, D.C. and New York City next summer.
Oh, that'll be exciting. I mean, 2 iconic cities, just so many different things to see from the Smithsonian. And then I don't know if you plan on doing Broadway at all in New York or just, tour the city, so many different sites to see there. That'll be some great vacations for your kids there.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, Kristi, any final thoughts as we get out of here today?
I don't think so. This was fun.
Definitely. So, well, thank you guys so much for all you do for our community. Thank you so much for being on our podcast. We really do appreciate it. And I want to wish you all the best as we continue on into the summer. And Derry, you start thinking about it's July, it's Christmas in July. You're halfway there. You're going to be there in no time, right?
Oh, yes. I've got my countdown on. So, yes, I'm ready.
And nice. Kristi, I'm sure maybe you'll pop over to Disneyland and see all the holiday decorations over there, too. So.
Probably. Got to talk my husband into it.
Well, once again, you guys, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your experiences. And we wish you all the best as we head into the summer. And we will be talking to you soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Kristi and Derry for coming on and sharing their adventures aboard the Disney Dream as she sails through Europe. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by joining our community by visiting patreon.com/DCL podcast. Whether you are boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Steve, Kristi, and Nova, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.